Elections are usually characterized by excitement, controversies, and uncertainty, and the 1996 United States presidential election was no different.
I said that our economic plan would produce 8 million jobs. We have 10.5 million new jobs. We're number one in autos again, record numbers of new small businesses.
Well, there he goes again. I mean, it's a line that's been used before, but exaggerating all the things that he did.
The Arkansas-born incumbent President Bill Clinton and his vice president Al Gore were seeking re-election against a wide range of candidates, his most formidable being Bob Dole, leader of the Republican Party.
I've been called the $10 million man. I've taken $10 million worth of assaults with negative ads. And if I was as bad as the ads say, I wouldn't vote for myself.
As well as popular alternatives like Ralph Nader of the Green Party and Ross Perot of the newly founded Reform Party.
The dollar's gone through the floor. Now, whose fault is that? Not the Democrats, not the Republicans. Somewhere out there's an extraterrestrial that's doing this to us, I guess.
Would Clinton retain his seat as the president? Or would the White House welcome a new man? This was a question on the minds of many Americans. Being the incumbent, President Bill Clinton was expected to clinch the Democratic ticket, and he did so quite comfortably, winning 89% of the votes nationwide. His challenger, Lyndon LaRouche, got only 5.4% of the votes, while 3.8% of Democratic voters were uncommitted. For the Republican ticket, it wasn't as straightforward as that of the Democratic Party. Former Senate Majority Leader and former Republican Vice Presidential nominee Bob Dole was the early favorite to win the ticket.
Big help. You probably wouldn't have a government shutdown or government breakdown. You could always borrow the money from Steve Forbes if you needed money.
Squaring up against a number of candidates, including conservative columnist Pat Buchanan, former Tennessee governor, and U.S. Secretary of Education Lamar Alexander, and publisher Steve Forbes.
I believe the government has too much to say about how your income is spent, about how your business is run, about how your land is used, about how your children are educated.
As predicted, Bob Dole won the ticket after initially falling behind Pat Buchanan. Bob got 58.8% of the votes. Buchanan was second with 20.8%, while Forbes could only manage 11.4%. Former Representative and Housing Secretary Jack Kemp was nominated to be Bob Dole's running mate.
So this is day one of a great team effort, and you're all part of it. This is day one of the campaign that will take Jack and me across the country, north, south, east, and west. And this campaign will end with victory on November 5, 1996.
For the Reform Party, nominating a candidate wasn't an easy process, as the party struggled to find a candidate willing to run for president. Eventually, the party went on to nominate its founder and 1992 independent president candidate, Ross Perot, as the first ever Reform Party presidential nominee. For his running mate, economist Pat Choate was selected. Unlike the 1992 election, where Ross Perot contested as an independent candidate, in the 1996 election, Ross Perot struggled to gain media attention and wasn't invited to the presidential debates.
Perot blasted Clinton for declining a one-hour live debate on election eve that Perot bought for $1 million.
In the midterm elections of 1994, the Democratic Party had taken a big blow, as for the first time in 40 years, the party lost its majority in the House of Representatives after losing 54 seats. Things were looking quite good for the Republicans, as for the first time in 8 years, they also won the majority in the Senate, with a net gain of 8 seats. Many blamed the Democratic Party's poor showing on some of the policies of President Clinton, particularly on healthcare and his proposal to allow lesbians and gay men to serve in the military. The Republicans, however, didn't manage the gains from the midterm elections properly. Led by House Speaker Newt Gingrich, they pursued policies in an unconventional and often confrontational manner. In 2 separate incidents, a budget impasse between Clinton and the Republicans in 1995 and 1996 resulted in 2 government shutdowns.
Federal workers will be asked to show up in their offices and not be given authority to do virtually anything. Anything that would cost money would be prohibited. They will be required to sit on their hands and stare at each other day after day after day until we pass something that gives them the right to do something.
Clinton's approach was more moderate, earning the praise of pundits for abandoning his healthcare plan and signing the GOP's welfare reforms. The reform was aimed at transitioning recipients of the package from welfare to work, was widely popular, as he also managed to achieve a balanced federal budget. President Clinton didn't have to do much to win his party nomination. So compared to other candidates, he was also able to focus his attention on the general elections quite early. His campaigns were already underway before any of his proposition had the time to respond. Senator Dole's age proved to be a concern for many voters. Compared to Clinton, who was 53, the 73-year-old veteran looked old and frail. His frailty was further highlighted when he fell off a stage in Chico, California during a campaign. He joked that he was trying to do the Democratic Macarena dance when he fell. He also made a blunder in September when he referenced the Brooklyn Dodgers, a team that moved to Los Angeles in 1958. What could have been an honest mistake was capitalized by the media. Dole's status as a war veteran and long-serving senator appealed to a number of older voters. Knowing this, he referred to Clinton as being part of the spoiled baby boomer generation, proudly stating that his generation won World War II and may need to serve one last time. Younger voters, however, didn't respond positively to these assertions. A survey showed that the demographic of young American voters found his frequent references in ads and speeches of the Great Depression and World War II unappealing.
I have some age, some experience, some intelligence. That adds up to wisdom.
I can only tell you that I don't think Senator Dole is too old to be president. It's the age of his ideas that I question.
Fully aware of how much attention the media was giving to issues relating to his health, Dole published photos of himself on a treadmill, even as he made public all of his medical records. The Clinton campaign team refrained from making any direct comments on the health status of Senator Dole, but slogans like "Building Bridges to the Future" helped convey their message. Dole had often referred to himself as a bridge to the past. A number of key issues were prominent during the campaign season. The economy was doing quite well, recovering from the recession of the early 1990s, and Clinton's campaign capitalized on this success. He also advocated for healthcare reforms and gun control. Clinton, in alignment with the Democratic Party's position on social issues, spoke about his support for gay and women's rights. Clinton proposed measures for the reduction of teen pregnancy and smoking. His successes in foreign policy were not left out, as he highlighted his diplomatic efforts in the Middle East and in Bosnia. On the other hand, Senator Dole proposed across-the-board tax cuts. Using his experience as a longtime senator and veteran, he presented himself as the candidate with a vision for maintaining the country's global leadership. Taking advantage of his experience and understanding of domestic and global issues, Dole criticized Clinton's handling of foreign policy, suggesting that he wasn't a strong leader. He also accused Clinton for not taking the teen drug crisis in the country seriously.
The Dole plan starts with a 15% tax cut for working Americans. That's $1,600 more for the typical family. A $500 per child tax credit. Education and job training incentives. Replacing the IRS with a fairer and simpler tax system. And a balanced budget amendment to stop wasteful spending.
Reform Party's nominee Ross Perot argued against what he perceived as excessive government intervention in the economy. Perot was against trade agreements like NAFTA, pointing out they resulted in a decline in manufacturing and job losses. The agreement signed by Clinton in December of 1993 to promote economic growth and trade among Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. was attracting a lot of criticism as a result of job outsourcing. Companies were also relocating to Mexico to cut labor and production costs.
And you don't care about anything but making money, there will be a giant sucking sound going south.
Throughout the campaign period, Clinton maintained a clear lead in the polls. The campaign, however, was not without some drama. In September 1995, concerns were raised about the fundraising practices of the Democratic National Committee. The Washington Post carried a report that the Department of Justice had uncovered fraudulent activity in the DNC's fundraising attempts. Intelligence showed that the Chinese embassy had coordinated contributions for the Democratic National Committee, a violation of law forbidding non-citizens from donating to U.S. politicians.
I think Attorney General Reno was right in starting the investigation to determine whether or not we need an independent counsel. I think she should have done it months ago.
The department also learned that a Chinese temple hosted a fundraiser organized by the DNC. According to U.S. laws, it is illegal for religious organizations to donate to political parties and politicians, given that religious bodies were exempt from taxes. The DNC returned all the proceeds from the fundraiser, and a total of 17 people were convicted of fraud.
The first and foremost thing we have to do is now let's find out what the truth is, if we can, first. Second, let's find out exactly how this happened, which is why I asked the council and the NSC to look into it. That is, what did these agents say? Were they instructed to say that? Did they just think it would be a good idea? Why did they do that?
On November 5th, 1996, President Clinton, as predicted by several polls in the run-up to the election, went on to win re-election quite convincingly. Clinton won this popular vote by a margin of over 8.2 million, equating to about 49.2% of the total votes, an improvement on the 43% he won in 1992. Bob Dole won 40.7%, while Parrott got 8.4%. In the Electoral College, the map was similar to the 1992 presidential election, where Clinton won 370 electoral votes. In the 1994 election, Clinton had 379 to Dole's 159. Ross Perot didn't manage to win any Electoral College votes.
We add a seventh name, the name of your president, my friend, President William Jefferson Clinton.
In comparison to the 1992 elections, only 5 states switched sides. Clinton lost Colorado, Georgia, and Montana, while winning Florida and Arizona. With Clinton's victory, he became the first Democrat since Franklin D. Roosevelt to win 2 consecutive presidential elections. The 1996 election marked the first time in the history of the U.S. that the winner failed to win the male vote, with Clinton snagging 55% from women and just 44% from men. For Ross Perot, his votes were less than half of his 1992 performance. He won only about 8% of the popular votes, compared to the 18.9% he won in 1992. Despite the defeat, the Republican Party managed to maintain its majority in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. In total, the voter turnout was very poor. At 51.7%, the election witnessed the lowest turnout for a presidential election since 1924. Since Clinton won the election comfortably, there was very little controversy around the election conduct. A few analysts, however, criticized pre-election polls, arguing that they might have overestimated Clinton's lead, resulting in a widespread loss of public interest in the election. Nonetheless, Bob Dole resigned with dignity, putting his support behind the American people's choice of Bill Clinton.
I have said repeatedly in this campaign that the president is my opponent, not my enemy, and I wish him well, and I pledge my support in whatever advances the cause of a better America. That's what the race was about in the first place, a better America as we go into the next century.
Thank you for watching. If you found value in this video, or you learned something that you didn't know, subscribe and like the video. Click the video on the screen for another great election video.